What a wonderful encounter between these two rivals. Whatever the outcome, it's still going to be a great contest in Sydney next week as well. So Mike Harris, 2 from 4 in the driving rain. It's Newcastle against Scotland. Spare a thought for him here. Can he win it? Can Australia clinch the James Bevan Trophy? There's the angle.
I remember we got the penalty, and David Pocock, who was the skipper at the time, came up to me and said, "Oh, just do your best, mate. We'll love you if you miss it or hit it. Don't worry, just do your best." Fortunately enough, I'd actually had 2 kicks in the warm-up from that exact spot.
That can be a bad thing sometimes, though.
Well, the good thing was I missed both of them to the right.
Right. Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so not many people know that, actually. I knew visually that, well, in the warm-up, I go across where I kick conversions on the 22. That's what I do for my warm-up. So that was on the cross of the 5, the 22, and I take it a bit further back. I knew visually that because I had 1 crack at it in the warm-up, and normally if I get it, I move to the next spot, but I had 2 cracks, and I was like, oh, obviously this position for me visually, because it was at Etihad Stadium, which is an oval stadium with the roof closed. I just thought to myself, well, obviously my brain thinks visually that I need to kick, because I kicked the first 2 in the warm-up exactly in the same spot. So, well, obviously this is where my brain thinks I need to be kicking it. So I said, all right, well, I'm just going to try a little bit further left.
You clinch the James Bevan Trophy. There's the angle, and it's a great shot! It's over! Flags are up! Mike Harris has done it for the Wallabies.
Just going back to that mental stuff, so trying out some mental stuff with your goal kicking. What were the tactics and things that you tried out?
Yeah, so I guess the thing that he really helped for me, like the technical details around that sort of stuff for me, was stuff I'd never tried. So we actually videoed a kick from across the 22, basically, or where you take conversions across the 22. So on each pole, on the 15, on the 5, and he videoed from behind, from side, and from the front, and he made a playlist of these videos and put music behind it. It's like, what's the song that you like, or whatever it was, you know. So, and we linked them up to music so that every time, just like a little jingle, because he was a psychologist, and every time the ball would be kicked, the song would arrive at the kick at the same point. So at the contact point, the song would be at the same point.
Cool.
So, and it's kind of his idea was that by you watching the video, it's positively reinforcing a good kick. So you get to see it, you see the ball go over, and it's kind of more that visualization thing, but actually putting it onto a screen in front of you, watching it, and having the jingle in your head, so that when the pressure comes on and it's in game, you have the same jingle going on in your head.
Yeah.
So it was quite like, for me, it sort of all made sense in theory. You know,
did you so in game that jingle would come into your head or not?
I don't think it did, but like, you don't know subconsciously, like, yeah. It's sort of hard because I also say a few words to myself when I get back into my place.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at the ball, I sort of, you know, just give myself a few cues. I don't know.
That is so cool.
But something completely different, right? Like you would, you know, when I was doing this and he was setting it all up and telling me about it, I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense in theory, but like, is this really going to help, sort of thing? And I don't know. It's, you know, some of the best kicking I've had. So
it's so cool because I quite often have that conversation with, and I think I always when it comes to mindset and goal kicking, like the player always has to be ready to hear the message, like be actually open and ready for it. Like, and you were probably at that stage in that pre-season, you're like, I'm hungry, I want to get better at this, and you were keen to learn as much as you could. So I'm always careful of pushing mental stuff because some people just aren't ready for it. But I think there's heaps of value, and you can have so many kicks in your head away from the field. And I'd always encourage like visualization. And I use the example of like, say, water skiing or surfing or on a snowboard. Like when you do it once, when you go back that next season, like your brain will have already played it out, thought through it, and you'll be so much better. Like, and that can happen daily with goal kicking. So that's awesome. I love the jingle. Was there anything else you tried out with him?
I think he really focused around setup, and I guess I was probably guilty of it. But yeah, just the whole thing. So his whole philosophy was like, you need to be in the exact same spot when you're away from the, like when you're in your place, like your in the approach. Balls, you know, however, your approach, you need to be in the exact same place. So he basically would watch how I do things, and he'd notice if my ball was slightly not sitting on the tee the same as the kick before. And, you know, I guess he sort of encouraged me to, because I mean, every kicker's got back to their place and been like, oh no, it doesn't feel right. I'm not, you know, like you're looking at the ball going, oh, I'm not sure if I'm like, with the ball on the tee properly or whatever. And he said, you've got to be tough enough mentally to go and change it, to go and adjust. Yep. And a lot of times, you know, you're like, oh, I've already wasted a minute of whatever time of the game. Like, I'll just kick it. But no, he was really strict on making sure that every single little detail. And so basically what he was doing, you know, when I look back at it now, is just treating every kick in training like it wasn't a game.
Yeah.
So don't, and as a young guy, like I was guilty of probably over kicking, like probably a lot of kickers do. You know, you go down to the park and you kick 50 balls. Yeah. And, you know, you get a bit older now and your hip flexors are so bloody tight that you can't kick it from 40, you know? So like, you don't want to get to that stage. So I guess we did less, the amount of kicks became less, but the importance on each kick became more.
Yeah.
So that was something that I really enjoyed, because, you know, our kicking sessions, he'd say, how many do you want to do? And I'd say 12 kicks, you know, and we'd just try and nut out 100% concentration on each one. So really taking quality over quantity was a big thing that probably that he drilled into me through the setup, through everything.
Mate, this is gold and so in line with my way of thinking. I think what you just mentioned in there about the 12 kicks, because we get asked a lot through Rugby Ricks, like what should a kicking session look like? How many kicks should I have? How long? Yep. And I think when you get into that level of being so strict on yourself with your ball setup, your approach setup, exactly what you're talking about, feeling comfortable, you're putting so much energy into it mentally that 12 kicks is actually like a lot, and it's a lot to focus on. And I wonder if you could talk through your ball flight. A lot of kickers try to kick the ball straight. I think it's quite a northern hemisphere thing when they're sitting it low to the ground and stand-up kickers, whereas with your style and leaning it forward on the 45, slightly higher tees. Are you big on ball flight with what you're trying to do with the ball in the air?
Not really. I think my ball flight's always sort of been just the standard, I guess, golf draw is what you'd say. Like it's sort of always starting on the right post. And actually he went back to some stuff where he was always, if you kick just inside the right post, that's a great kick. If it goes just inside the left post, you've actually pulled it a bit. So he was always trying to get me to start up on the right post and almost go through the channel just inside the right upright. But no, it's always, and I think over time through your body and through changes and stuff, my ball flight's probably become a lot straighter. But yeah, traditionally it's just been that sort of 3 or 4 meter draw across the length of the kick, which hasn't sort of bothered me too much, as long as you know which way it's going. I think the hard thing for kickers is when if you're slicing it, or, you know, if one slices and the next one draws, it's like, well, as long as you're consistent, and that's a big thing for me as well. When, you know, whenever a coach has come along and tried to help me out with kicking, they've sort of said, look, you can already kick a ball. We don't need to change anything too fundamentally there. It's just about getting consistency in what you're doing.
Yeah. I love it, and I'm a big fan of ball flight because you're in control of the ball and you put it where you want to put it rather than trying to kick it straight and it might fade, it might draw, it might go straight.
Yeah. And I think you talk about Northern Hemisphere, a lot of them lean the ball out, which is basically just counteracting the fact that naturally their ball would turn anyway. And a lot of, like, some guys play around with the valve and having the valve out so that, you know, the heavier side of the ball is facing out, basically, to keep it a bit straighter and that sort of thing. But I think because Johnny was obviously a big advocate for leaning the ball out, but it'd be really interesting to see Johnny kick with a straight up and down ball and just kick it how he kicks it and see if it actually does turn, because I sort of feel like the leaning out was to counteract the natural curve, and then that was how they kick so straight. So
and then that can sometimes lead to a whole heap of undercut and underspin. And like, it's interesting watching Owen Farrell kick, because he does the lean out, but he still has got that tiny little draw, which I think it might just help him kick a slightly straighter draw. When you miss, I had 3 reasons why I missed, and I'm wondering what trends you had why you missed.
I think my fear of missing has always been missing left, hooking.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, when I miss, was normally one, you've hooked it, or 2, you're worried about hooking it, so you've almost pushed it, so you've hit too low on the ball and it kind of pops up high right. You don't sort of the contact. And then there's obviously foot placement. If your foot placement's too close to the ball, you're likely to pull it. And if you'd push it. Like, if you're coming too close, you can push it. And
Did you feel like that was something that had creeped into your, like, when you were kicking poorly, you were getting too close?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and then sometimes too far forward as well. Like, you get your plant foot and you're already like trying to get through the kick before you've even kicked the ball.
And what was the fix?
I think you just sometimes it's not easy to fix. You can get in a bit of a rut with it and whatnot, but I think actually one of the boys in France actually, when I was playing with Lyon, sort of just had a good technique. He'd literally just put the ball on the tee how he'd like to kick it. He'd walk back sort of 20 meters away or 10 meters away from the ball, so not his usual run up, but just get used, like, if it's a foot placement and approach problem, just to start his routine every time, or start his practice session, he would just walk back 10 meters, slowly jog in, and then have to do his own approach by not starting from a standstill.
Yeah, right.
So that's the way you sort of teach your brain to sort of adjust and to make sure that you are getting in the right place. And then that was all about just trying to get the right contact. Yeah. If you can't get the right contact, your plant foot's not in the right spot.
Yeah, I totally agree with that as well, because your goal kicking, you should be able to strike the ball just as well as you can out of hand, like, in my opinion. So you just need to get back to, I feel like a lot of people get into a rut in a session and then just stay on the tee and just keep kicking shit and shit. So
there's been days where I've just like pulled the pin. I've just been like, nah, you've had 3 or 4 kicks, and you're 100% concentrated on those 3 or 4 kicks, and like you haven't hit one well, and it's just some days you just got to pull it and just go, look, tomorrow's another day, and I definitely recommend don't stay out there just flogging a dead horse. So, because all you're going to do is just frustrate yourself, and then mentally probably ingraining actually bad technique.
Yeah. I'd just like to say to our listeners, like, I'm carrying on with this goal kicking chat. I'm being a bit selfish. So a few more questions around goal kicking. Documenting throughout your career, and also how often, again, going back to that period where you just decided, no, I'm going hard with this. Like, what did your week look like, and also with your mental guy, and also did you have a kicking diary or a book or record sessions?
Yeah, so I did when I was with him, through sort of the Queensland times. Not so much these days, to be fair. Not sure why, really. Just something I didn't necessarily for myself find that I was looking at it that much. Obviously, you can have after game stats and stuff. You see your plots on the field and stuff. And through the season, obviously, you can get plotted of where you've kicked and where you've missed, and that's always good feedback, I guess. If you you can see a bogey spot or something like that. But training sessions, I haven't been documenting those.
I think just to jump in, like, because you're a bit older and you've done the hours, you can trust all that work that you've done. So like I don't think it's a good place for kickers listening. Like there has to be a stage in your career where you do document everything and like organize all your thoughts. So sorry, carry on.
No, for sure. There was definitely the times where the notebook would come out, and every session, and where you've hit, how you felt, how you kicked, and what percentages and stuff that you're doing. So, but yeah, the time in Queensland, I always preferred to kick after training. Like I wasn't a big one for putting in an extra session, say in the morning or in between before training, and because I just felt after training I was really warm and ready to go. For myself, if I try and do a kicking session where I'm not sort of 100% warm or not feeling loose, or like the session can be really tough. Just to get into that rhythm, to get into that feeling, because obviously when you're playing a game, you're 100% warmed up, ready. You're feeling good, so the body's feeling on. So
yeah,
I always tried to do my sessions afterwards, where I'd do no more than probably 10 to 15 kicks. As I said, if it was a bad day, then sometimes I just have to wipe the session. But 10 to 15 kicks. When I was younger, I'd probably do a lot more, and that's I'm probably paying for a little bit now with the old hips. But
Did you have a strategy in games for missing parking kicks?
How do you mean? Sorry.
So like you take your first kick, you miss. Have you got a way of parking that kick so you can get on with your other jobs on the field as a 12 or 10? So just parking that, but also just maybe identifying what went wrong in that kick and then moving on.
I think you've hit the nail on the head right there. Like if you can identify what went wrong straight away. So I don't know, maybe you lifted your head, or maybe you knew that your plant foot was too close, or you didn't have the mental capacity to look at the ball and go, I don't feel good, I'm going to go and start again, or something like that. You just go, I'm just going to kick this one and see how it goes. And then if you identify that straight away on your run back to halfway, or if they're taking a 22 worst case, then you can. I think if you can deal with it then and there, then that's the best thing I would say. I sort of don't let, because I guess if you put 100% into it and it doesn't go well, or you miss, like you've given it everything.
Yeah.
I think it can probably drag on a bit more in your head if you're sort of have taken it a bit blasé and not haven't put it all into it. Then you probably go, I should have done this, or I should have done that. But if you've put everything into that kick and the process and the setup, you're not going to hit all of them. So if you accept that you're not going to kick all your kicks, then I think it's easier to park and just get on with it.
Yeah.
Every kick's a new kick.
Yeah, I love the message, and you kind of just mentioned it again about the focus and the setup and just nailing everything before you actually make contact with the ball. I had a session with your mate Quade Cooper over the field, and like he just blew me away with how how inconsistent he was with his ball setup and his step backs and his arms things. And like that was my main point. And he really focused and nailed in and got the rewards from just literally ball setup and his step back routine. And we fixed that.
I think that's the biggest thing, as you say. It's the discipline to be able to do all the little boring stuff to get yourself in the best. Whether you're in the exact same place and the ball is perfect, but if you feel like it is, and you're in a good space mentally when you're looking at the ball and your approach, that's halfway there to kicking it, because it feels right, it feels natural. Because if you're back there looking at the ball and questioning yourself, that's I think when you get into trouble.